This is the Unit 7 review. Okay. So let's get this rolling. This is Unit 7 is Chapter 8 and Chapter 11. So Chapter 8 is Motivation and Emotion. Know that they go hand in hand because emotion often motivates us. And then Personality is Chapter 11. So we'll get through it all in 40 minutes or less. Hopefully. All right. So motivation, just our definition for it: biological, emotional, cognitive, or social forces that activate and direct behavior. I think if you see anything about motivation, particularly as in like an answer to a question or something like that, you'd probably see these three basic characteristics somehow: activation, persistence, and intensity. And again, just to hit on it one more time, emotions. We're often motivated to feel certain emotions and then stay away from other emotions. So again, they're just really tied together. One, they're super tied together because they're in the same brain system, the limbic system, right? Our second floor to our third story mansion of our brain. The limbic system really helps us guide us through the environment by our motivating factors like the hypothalamus, which thirst, hunger, and thirst. Okay? Oh my gosh, the ring light almost fell. So instinct theories, exactly what you think they are. I mean, all based in evolution pretty much. So instinct theories, your evolutionarily programmed human organism comes out, right? So when we think about instinct theories, you think about human instincts and what we do. So if you think about other species, you would look at migration or mating rituals or whatever it is. All inspired by Darwin. He wrote a book about that. We'll talk about it. All right, drive theories. This would actually push you from the inside. So imagine some weird internal tension within you, possibly called hunger, and you feel it within your body, and that would actually motivate you and push you towards reducing that drive, right? So what do you do whenever you feel hungry? You eat. All right, that is what drive theory is all about. Homeostasis, definitely a term you're going to see on there somewhere, but I hope you know what that means. It means you have this consistent normal feeling in the body, okay? Your baseline. Incentive theories are things that pull you towards them, right? So something dealing with a reward or some sort of external circumstance that you're getting pulled towards. So if you ever see this push versus pull theory, that is just drive versus incentive theory, okay? So kind of understand that. Again, I always use this example of Sean Payton. He called it a creative incentive program where he paid people to hurt other NFL players, and in doing so they won the Super Bowl, and it worked, but definitely unethical when it comes to the NFL. He got suspended for a year. Arousal theory. So you are motivated to feel certain arousals, right? And I'm not talking about sexual arousal, even though we're probably motivated to feel that as well. I'm talking about bodily, physiological arousal, as in like heartbeat and all that kind of stuff. So in arousal theory, and we'll talk about this law in a little bit called the Yerkes-Dodson law. And the Yerkes-Dodson law kind of explains that to perform and complete a moderate to challenging task, you should have a low to moderate level of arousal. If your arousal is too high, you're not going to really perform well at a challenging task. But you could easily do an easy task if your arousal is high. So we'll look at that here in a little bit. I got a chart for you. But in this case, I would guess that you wouldn't necessarily see arousal theory that much in an AP exam. except with the question about a sensation seeker. A sensation seeker is somebody who seeks out high levels of arousal because they find it pleasurable. I mean, these are skydivers, right? Base jumpers, snowboarders and wakeboarders and all those people. All right. Humanistic theories of motivation. I mean, it's pretty easy to understand if you know what humanistic psychology is, right? Humanistic psychology is to reach one's potential. And so if we just talk about it in a motivational way, we understand that we are motivated as humans to do one thing: reach our potential, right? So Carl Rogers, Abraham Maslow, those are the two people who champion humanistic theories. Again, they just say that, all right, we are motivated to reach our potential. That is the core motivation of a human. All right, biological motivation. So we get into hormones, okay, right here, and how they affect us and how they kind of guide us. Now, please know that the hypothalamus is that structure in the limbic system. It is our center for, again, hunger, thirst, and sexual desire. Now, at the bottom of the hypothalamus, there is the gland that rules all glands. What is it? Starts with a P, ends with a pituitary gland. So it's connected to the hypothalamus. And then all of a sudden, we have these things that are released in our body that kind of guide us in our, taking care of the drives within our body, right? So let's look at these things. One, we do know that, probably the most popular energy source that we know of is glucose. So you probably know what it is, right? It's simple sugar, blood sugar. Insulin is the hormone that helps maintain stable body weight. And then we have our BMR, right? Our metabolism. So this is the rate at which we expend energy when we're just resting, when we're just chilling, when we're just ourselves. We're not expending extra energy or anything like that. We're just doing our everyday thing. That is our BMR, okay, our metabolism. And then a fancy word for fat is adipose tissue. And you might see that. I've seen it on the AP exam probably twice in my 6 years of getting through it. Positive versus negative energy balance. Again, this is gaining and losing weight. So we have energy homeostasis, which is where we match. It's like the long-term matching of expenditure and caloric intake. So usually, as a human, if you live long enough, you figure that out, and then all of a sudden, you eat as much as you need to eat. And you kind of fall into that, okay? But there's these things that happen: positive energy balance and negative energy balance. So positive energy balance is the caloric intake exceeds the energy expended during a day, meaning that more calories are coming in than you're spending, meaning that you'll gain weight. That will actually change into adipose tissue, fat. Is that a bad thing for a human? In today's society, it seems like it is. But in our evolutionary journey, for hundreds of thousands of years, we were going to eat as much as we possibly could to get as much fat on our body because we didn't know when we were going to eat next. So you actually fight. If you want to lose weight, you're fighting hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Okay? That's kind of tough to do. And then we have negative energy balance, which our caloric intake falls short of the calories expended by energy. So we're expending a certain amount of caloric energy, right? That's our unit for energy in the body. And we are not consuming as much as we're expending. And then we end up going into our fat reserves, and we spend that energy as well, and you start losing weight, because you're not consuming the correct amount of calories. So if you want to lose weight, negative energy balance. If you want to gain weight, positive energy balance. And we'll actually talk about how hormones are related to that as well. The only thing on this page is so easy to remember. If I'm hungry, the hunger hormone comes, right? And the hunger hormone is called ghrelin. And if I'm hungry, I hop in the backyard, I jump on the grill, and I be ghrelin. Okay? Easy to remember. That is the hunger hormone. Have to remember that. Guaranteed question on the AP exam. Okay? All right. Classical conditioning and operant conditioning whenever it comes to regulating eating. Again, we are programmed, I guess, to eat at certain times, which is so weird to me. I skip breakfast every single day. I mean, I have coffee, but I skip breakfast every day. I don't need to eat breakfast. It's not the most important meal of the day. It's not. You know what the most important meal of the day is? Probably just one meal. I mean, you're like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, okay, literally, I know in your brains, you're like, no, it's not. I have to eat this and that and snacks and blah, blah, blah. No, you just have to make sure you eat today. You know? Enough to substantiate some sort of energy. And I'm talking about the evolutionary things that are going on within your body. You can fight that all day, and you see Oreo and you want to eat it, blah, blah, blah. That's highly palatable foods. We'll talk about that in a second with positive incentive value. But classical conditioning is just the time of day. I could not be hungry and lunch come. And I've had lunch at noon for my entire life. What would my body do? My stomach would growl. All of these little things that happen at this time of day, usually, right before I eat, they would happen. That is classical conditioning. All right? They've been paired together forever to elicit the same response. It's just the time of day. Then we have operant conditioning, which is, punishment and reward. And, humans these days are very driven for reward-based foods. And reward-based foods are just highly palatable, right? So super tasty foods, so positive incentive value. It's interesting. You won't be hungry. You'll see some Oreos and you'll eat one, because you like them and they taste good. And they release dopamine in your brain, aka rewards. So all motivated by that. Satiation, one of my favorite words in the world, meaning satisfied, particularly when we use it here in this situation. We're talking about satisfied our hunger, right? So we're full. We have several signals combined to help trigger this. We have stretch receptors in the stomach. And once those are actually triggered and that is sent to the brain, the hypothalamus understands that we are eating. It sends a message to the pituitary gland, and then it releases something called CCK. And CCK helps us realize, by releasing this hormone into the bloodstream, that we're full. That whole process takes about 20 minutes. So you don't realize you're full until 20 minutes after you're full. Okay? So kind of know what CCK is, understand that it is released, in a process of, okay, the stomach has stretched, it is communicated to the brain, and then all of a sudden we're releasing this other hormone to let us understand that, okay, we've had enough. So sensory-specific satiety, the reduced desire to continue consuming a particular food. I always use pork chops as this example. I had pork chops way too often whenever I was younger. My dad, it's like the only thing he ever made. I don't want pork chops anymore. You should have the pork chops at Freddy's. They're so good. No. I'm done with pork chops. All right, leptin. Here's the appetite suppressor. How do I remember it? I'm not eating, so I must be drinking leptin iced tea. That's how I remember it. But there's some weird things with leptin. And you'll see that with, people with high fat stores actually have this thing called leptin resistance, where they build this tolerance up to leptin just like you would any other drug, and it doesn't work unless you have more and more and more of it, and then eventually you can't produce enough of it to stop you from eating. And so this hormone never really triggers the thing to stop you from eating. Leptin resistance. We'll talk about it here in a second. So leptin is the hormone produced by fat cells that signals the hypothalamus regulating hunger and eating behavior. So if we have a positive energy balance, so we've taken in more caloric energy than we've expended in the day, the fat stores increase, and so does leptin. And then food intake should be reduced. If we have a negative energy balance, the exact opposite happens. Fat stores decrease, right? So does leptin, triggering eating to get those fat stores back up. The only neurotransmitter that we are going to study about regulating eating behavior is neuropeptide Y. How are you going to remember that this is the only neurotransmitter in a giant group of hormones? The beginning of the word. Okay? I mean, it literally says it is a neurotransmitter in the word. Okay? So neurotransmitter found in several brain areas, most notably the hypothalamus. This stimulates eating behavior and reduces metabolism, promoting positive energy balance and weight gain. Neuropeptide Y. Eating and body weight over the lifespan. Look, your metabolism slows. I think that happened to me at like 22. I always tell everybody I didn't turn 21 until I turned 21, if you know what that means. And at 22, I was working full-time, going to school full-time, ending my college career, my first college career. And my activity levels kind of like stopped because I was at a desk job and all that kind of stuff. And alcohol was introduced into my life. And alcohol turns into sugar, and sugar turns into fat, and blah, 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 and all these things happen. I gained weight at about 22 because my metabolism went down, and I was introducing other substances into my body that changed into fat. Usually the body finds that metabolism point, right, and then it sets at a certain point for weight. And that's what these two things are, set point theory and settling point models of weight regulation. All right, excess weight and obesity. Again, one of the only formulas that you need to know is BMI. All right, I think that you'll probably be able to, look that up in case you don't know it, which I don't. If you can commit this to memory, awesome, but if you don't have to, don't. So you can see it, step 1, step 2, step 3. Just make sure if you look at mine, understand that I put this right here because I couldn't make that little teeny tiny 2. I couldn't make the square sign.
Well, that's what it means.
Yeah, but some people might not know what that means. They just might be like, times it by 2. The silly people. So whenever you look at BMI and the certain levels, kind of know that decimals matter, and that anything 30 and above is considered obese. All right, reasons for becoming overweight. There's a lot of reasons. Tasty food, supersize it syndrome, sleep. Bad sleep equals unable to judge or risky behaviors, and risky behaviors could be considered eating bad food. The cafeteria diet effect, so more consumed, so the tendency to eat more when a wide variety of palatable foods is available. You are in Monkey Junction and you're with some people and you decide, oh, we're hungry. There's a lot of tasty options right around Monkey Junction, J. Michael's, B-Dubs, Burger King.
No.
So that is the cafeteria diet effect. Sedentary lifestyles, like I said, desk jobs. You have control out of every single one of these things except for your metabolism. So that's something you have to pull out of that. And if you have any question that's like that deals anything with metabolism or obesity or whatever, know that the only one that the human actually has no control over is your metabolism. Okay? even though you can manipulate it a little bit. Can eating help you live longer? Studies show yes, with rhesus monkeys and rodents. And we watched a little tiny video on this guy that only eats the skin of apples, and he's decreased his caloric intake by 1/3, and he believes that he will increase his lifespan by about 10 years. And those studies are proven through these experiments with rhesus monkeys and rodents. But why do we overeat? I've already told you. We're programmed to. Our ancient bodies in this modern world still understand that we might not ever eat again. So we better eat it all right now. Just like wolves. Okay? Interaction of genetics and environment. Listen, people are susceptible to obesity, but they're not born to be obese. Leptin resistance, again, we're talking about pretty much building a tolerance to leptin. And then I have seen this quite often on the AP exam, weight cycling, also known as yo-yo dieting, meaning that you gain weight and then you diet, and then you gain weight again, and then you diet. Literally the story of my life. Dopamine centers of the brain, be careful. Food addiction's real. Psychological needs as motivators. So again, Abraham Maslow, things that you need to know about him. Hierarchy of needs. At the top is self-actualization. At the bottom is biological needs. What you need to actually live, right? So again, air. You can live 3 minutes without air. Water. 3 days without water. Food. At max, if you're still drinking water, 2.5 months without food. And then we have to poop and pee, aka excretion. Sex has to happen. Not by you necessarily, by whoever procreated you. And then finally homeostasis, which is just feeling normal. Things that can mess that up, disease, virus, cancer, whatever you want to think of right there, okay? It can knock you out of homeostasis. Broken bones even, stuff like that. You have to have bodily homeostasis to be consistent in surviving. And then you move up to safety needs, shelter, clothing, right? And then love and belonging. You become a part of the group, so we move into social needs. And then psychological needs, where we create our self-esteem and our confidence and all that kind of stuff, which people now say you can jump in between these levels once you have the bottom level. And then if you get all the levels, boom, maybe, if the environment is supportive enough, you get to self-actualization. That's Abraham Maslow. Here he is again with his little pyramid.